name is Taylor. Before we go in, we just ask that you please don't touch anything unless I hand it to you or one of the crafters hand it to you. Feel free to take as many pictures and videos as you like. Just be sure to turn that flash off and put your phones on silent or vibrate. But if you follow me, we'll go ahead and get started.
Put mine in airplane mode. Let's go. Hmm?
I said airplane, I put it in airplane.
Very good. Hi. Let's get down here, let everybody else get in.
I'll know. I kind of know what I'm doing. Objective.
Alright, so this right here is finger weaving. So this is how we would have made all our belts and sashes. Now you have three different methods for this. The first is a single weave, and that's an over and under pattern. With that, you're able to get checkered and plaid designs like you see right up there. The second is the double weave, and that looks like a weave done on a traditional loom. But as you can see, no looms are being used, they're all done by hand. You can get designs like you see right over there. But the oldest, more traditional method is called a bleed. And that incorporates the use of beads. Now before we had access to yarn that the Europeans would have brought over, we would have used bison fur, and that's what this is right here. You can also take fibers out of the Indian hemp plant or milkweed, and you can also start weaving those together too. But our weavers can work with up to 200 strands at one time. This right here is an example of that 200 strand. So something like this would have been sewn together to make a blanket or a shawl out of. So you take a bunch of these panels and then you sew them all together after they're all. Do y'all have any questions? Slide right over here. This right here is beadworks. Before the commercial materials that we're using today, we would have used seashells, and we'd have got these through trading with coastal tribes. Beads could be made out of clay, or even glass beads that would have been imported from Europe. And of course, bones, claws, and teeth out of animals, and also corn beads, also known as joke tears. But for the needle and thread, you take this deer hoof right here, and this bone above that, you're going to break that, take a piece out of that, and you're going to drill a hole into it, and cut it down to a point, and that's going to be your needle. And then the sinew, the thread is going to be made from sinew, and that's like the lining or muscle tissue of an animal that you can kind of peel that strand off. You have two ways of doing this. You have the scroll method, so this would have been used to go down the sides of men's leggings or like around the bottom of women's skirts. And then you have the solid method. And so each of these beads are going to be sewn into the next one. That way the thread will pass through each one twice. So if this was to break, you wouldn't lose that many beads and it would be easily repairable. So once you got your desired length and width, you take strips of buckskin, sew them onto the end right there, and that's what you're going to use to tie these on where they're going to go. Do y'all have any questions? Keep on moving into this next step.
I know. Wait for him.
Stay moving. Oops, sorry. Nice way. Here, you're proceeding here. Right there.
Alright, so this right here is pottery. Now, the Cherokee did not use a potter's wheel because that wasn't around back then. So this was done by hand, just as the previous top. You have two ways of doing this. You have the ball method. You're going to take that clay, roll that into a ball, press your thumbs down in the middle of it, start shaping out your pot that way. And that would be used for smaller pots that you see right over here. But if you needed a bigger pot, then you're going to use the coil method. So you're going to start out with a flat disc as the base, and then take coils of clay, and then stack those on top so you can make this as tall as you want, and you can make it as wide as you want. Then you would need to shave the sides of it off so that it's nice and even all the way around. So you take a tool like this, and this is going to be made from river cane, and you'll see this quite a bit as we go through. River cane looks like bamboo, but it grows a lot smaller and only near river banks, hence the name river cane. But you're going to hollow out the middle of that, and that right there is going to be your tool that you use to scrape off the sides. But of course, once metal was introduced, you can start using tools like this right here. Now, in order to get this glossy finish to it, that's not any special coating or any kind of mixture. That shine comes from taking a smooth river stone, so while this pot is still soft, you just take this stone and you rub it on there, and that's going to polish it and give it that shine to it. And then after you did that, then you would take anything sharp, whether it be a stick, a metal tool, or even the end of a deer antler, or even something like a seashell. And you're just going to take that and you're just going to carve your design into the side of your pot. After you have your design in there, then you're going to place your pots around a fire with the opening facing it. That way this is going to bake from the inside out. And after a few hours, your pot's going to get like a bluish hue to it. Then you just roll that into the fire, bury it in the embers, and let the fire completely die out, and then your pot will be ready to be used. Now, depending on the type of wood that you use, that would give you different colors. So these are not painted. If you use a soft wood in your fire, that's going to produce a lot of smoke and give you these nice dark finishes that you see right here. Then if you use a hardwood in your fire, that's going to produce less smoke but more flames and more heat and give you more of a natural finish like this right here. But you can mix those two woods together and you can get a mixed finish on that pot. And now a pot like this would be a wedding vase. So when two people are getting married, each person is going to drink water out of one side of this right here. This little pot right there with all those little spikes on it, that's going to be a fire pot. So if you were going somewhere and you needed to build a fire somewhere, you would take that pot and you would scoop up some embers from an existing fire. That way you can carry those embers with you, dump them out, and start your fire where you need to. Those little spikes right there is what you can kind of hold on to prevent your hands from touching the actual pot itself. But a lot of the designs that you've seen here or over at Woodwork and finger weaving, a lot of the meanings behind those designs have been lost over time just because we did not have a written language up until about 200 years ago. So a lot of those meanings have been lost, but we do know those designs were used because of artifacts that have been found and various documentations that use those designs. Okay. But do you have any questions?
When they got done, you just set it in the fire is what you're saying, let it kind of like dry out.
Yep, just let the fire die, and once it's cool and everything for you to pick up, then it's ready to be used. From start to finish, it could take you about a day or so, depending on what kind of pot you're making. Something like a pot like this it'll probably take you an hour or so, maybe a couple hours to do. But the firing process itself could take up to 12 hours.
Where did you get the clay? That thing? Where did they in the rivers or?
If you dig near like a foot down, a foot or two down near the side of the riverbank, that's where you can pull up some of that clay.
How do you bury it in the fire?
You just roll your pots into the fire, then you can just take like sticks or something and just kind of scrape those in. Did you know those really hot coals that are in a fire? Yeah. You can just kind of take, obviously not your hands, but take something to scoop those over that pot. Alright, well, we'll keep on moving over here.
But I mean, we were
just under your back.
We were jacking it up.
right here is wood carving. Now these masks that you see right up here, they would have been used in our dances. There will be a talk that you'll get to later on that go more in depth about that. But before we had access to metals, we carved them out of solid pieces of wood like this. We would have had to use something easier, so the mask would be made out of tree bark or even gourds. If you don't know what a gourd is, it's just a vegetable. It's kind of like a pumpkin, just has a bunch of seeds in it. But you could fill this with beads or small rocks, put a handle on it. Now you have a rattle. You can also use them for water dippers, and you'll find these in the council house whenever you get around to that. You can also cut the top of them off, and that'd be a bowl or a plate for your food. And then before things like forks and spoons, you're going to take a piece of rubber cane, cut some notches into the end of that, and that right there is what you're going to use as a fork. And then for your spoon, you take a bison horn, and you hollow out the end of that right there. And so those are going to be your utensils that you use. And then we also find uses for these bigger seashells. So you're going to break the ends of them off, and you'll get a piece that looks like that. Another piece of decoration, or maybe a button for your clothing. But the rest of this is going to be crushed into a powder and then mixed with animal fat, and that's going to create a white paint. And that's how we would have got that. And that would came from the seashell.
Well, never knew that.
Now Cherokee were farmers, so obviously you would need some gardening tools. This right here is a garden hoe. You have a big piece of flint tied on with sinew. The handle is made from rhododendron, which is just weird that you would plant all around us. But obviously, metal lasts a lot longer and it doesn't break quite as easily. So once metal was introduced, the Cherokee quickly switched over to using metal. And let's say you had a metal pot and you got a hole in it, or for whatever reason you couldn't use it. Nowadays we toss it out, but back then you could strip that down even more to pieces like this, and now you have another piece of decoration that you can wear and show off. And then you could even hammer them, give them a little bit of texture to them by hammering that in right there. But we also work with soapstone or pipestone. It's a very soft stone that can be carved easily, so that would be used to make things like this 7-sided pipe right here. So each clan is going to have their own side and their own pipe stem, and they're going to take a puff of smoke out of here. Now the tobacco that was used at the time was very harsh, so if you inhaled it, you were likely going to make yourself sick. Instead, you held the smoke in your mouth, and it was our belief that as you said your prayers, the smoke would carry your prayers up to the Creator. And so that's what that was used for. Now, if you needed to drill a hole, so before Black & Decker, this is going to be your drill. So you have a piece of flint tied on with sinew. This is interchangeable, so if you needed a bigger size hole, put a bigger piece of flint on the end right there. And the way it's designed is it's just going to wind itself back up. All you have to do is place that where you want to drill this hole, then you move this handle up and down. Any questions?
Yeah, when did they find the metal? Or when did the metal come in?
Whenever the Europeans came over, they're the ones who brought that in.
They brought that in.
Now there was copper deposits around here, so there were very small, crude pieces of jewelry being used, but we didn't have a way to refine it until the Europeans came over and showed everybody how to blacksmith, silversmith, stuff like that. Yeah, so the Cherokee did have blacksmiths, silversmiths, and everything. Just kind of picked up when we wanted to learn, and so that's how that kind of came into play.
What's that over there? Like the box, it looks like a little wooden bird sitting out. Now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, we're going to turn around and go to that next stop right there. Alright, so this right here is baskets. Now you can use a few different materials for this. You could use white oak. You take that white oak sapling, you start splitting this down so you got a bunch of really long splints. And then you would need to shave those splints down so they become pliable enough for you to use and work with. But you could also use river cane. Like I said, it looks like bamboo, but it grows a lot smaller. Same thing, you would split this, but you would only shave it from one side, which would be from the inside. You didn't want to shave the outside of these. They have a natural glossy finish to them, and you don't want to shave that off. But once you had all your splints, split and shaved, then if you, depending on if you wanted colors on there, then you would have to boil your splints, and depending on what you used, that would give you different colors. So for things like reds and oranges, you would use bloodroot, and you would boil your splints with that. If you wanted yellows, you would use yellow root. Brown, you would use walnut, and then butternut for black. And the longer you leave them in there, the more dark and vibrant those colors will be. So they didn't really fade over time. They'd pretty much always be this color once you dyed them. So you have two ways of doing this. You have the single weave, which is an easier to see example of how that's done, is right here. It's just an over and under. And then you also have the double weave, which is the same concept. When you got to the top, you're going to fold all your splints back down, and you're going to weave your way back down the bottom and then finish it off at the bottom. So there would be 2 layers to this basket right here.
Wow.
And then if you wanted a handle on that basket, you had a couple different options. So you have the drop handles, and it gets its name because once you have this attached onto those little loops, the handles are just going to freely fall down whenever you're not holding them. And these little loops right here are going to be woven in near the top of the basket. Alright, so these little loops are going to be woven in there at the top, which means if these were to break, you would just have to undo the top a little bit, fix whatever you needed, and then you would just wind it back up, and it'd be pretty simple to fix. But this would be the last thing you would do, unlike the interlocking handle, which would be the first thing that you would do, because your